Hiya folks, so recently I have been putting the DJI Mini 3 Pro through its paces and have been having quite a bit of fun doing so. However, there have been a couple of issues that I've noticed and picked up on, and they have had me a little bit concerned. Now, because this is a relatively new drone, I've pretty much put this down to teething issues that DJI will hopefully resolve with the various future firmware updates and DJI Flight app updates. The interesting thing, however, is that some of these teething issues I've also noticed with the DJI Mini 2 recently. Now, I have had this drone for 18 months by this point, so for these issues that I've been experiencing with the Mini 3 to now also pop up on the Mini 2 is a little bit strange, and I'm assuming it is down to the firmware itself rather than the Flight app. So today I'm going to actually take the Mini 2 out for a flight and just explain to you some of the problems that I'm having recently with DJI's drones that weren't present before. And as always, if you do enjoy the video, please do drop a like and make sure you subscribe for future drone content. So right now I have both the controller and the drone switched off because I want to show you this first problem that I've noticed as it happens. Now remember, this is the DJI Mini 2, a drone that has been flying pretty flawlessly for the last 18 months. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the controller on first of all, and just as that's booting, I'm going to go ahead and turn the drone on. And oh, typical, why can I feel drizzle in the air? I can't even see any grey clouds above me. Oh well. Now, the first problem then is the fact that there seems to be an issue with connecting to satellites. Previously, I would turn on the drone and that satellite connection would happen within seconds. And I do mean seconds. I'd be within 15 to 20 plus satellites. Right now we're reading 0 satellites, as you can see, and the home point has not yet been updated. Now, we do actually have a satellite connection coming there with the home point updated, but it did take just a little bit longer than what I'm used to. It might not seem like a lot, like a huge thing, but I do worry that that is going to interfere with the overall connection as we're flying. Now, I'm just going to show you the firmware that I currently have active here, which is the latest firmware. It's 01.04. And the only update notes for this firmware was that it increased or improved aircraft flight safety. Now, as always, DJI don't give us huge amounts of details when it comes to their firmware update notes or their app update notes, so we can only speculate exactly how the flight safety has been improved. But whatever the behind the scenes issue is, I have a feeling it is related to that particular change. But let's go ahead now and get the drone into the air. What I want to do is keep the Mini 2 directly in my line of sight, okay? And that's because the next issue that has really become a bit of a problem lately is with the compass. So let's go ahead and gain some height and altitude, or rather just altitude since they're the same thing. And you can see the compass is way off. Now, I have calibrated this thing several times just in case it was an issue on my end, but it just isn't lining up. Now, I have had a couple of minor issues with the compass before. Those of you that have watched my channel for any number of months may remember some of those issues, but I did get them all sorted until this recent firmware update. Now, this is an issue I am also experiencing on the DJI Mini 3, both the connection to the satellites and also, which in all fairness to the Mini 2, the connection to the satellites isn't doing too badly right now. But the compass issue and the satellite issue have both been present on the Mini 3 as well. Now, the firmware may be a different version on the Mini 3 because it's a different drone, so there will be adjustments that are made for that particular hardware, but I do suspect the underlying base that supports that firmware is going to be the same. So any issues that occur with the firmware itself are likely to affect both drones. So let's go ahead now and just go for a brief flight around the area. It's obviously a rural area, so there shouldn't be any serious interference here. And normally there is not. And we'll just see how we get on. Annoyingly, as is always the case, typically when I'm recording and actually want to show something to you guys, this is one of the better flights I've been able to do with the Mini 2 in terms of connection and that recently. So, hopefully some of these problems are coming through. Now we're about 300 meters away and the connection is still pretty stable, I've got to say. We have dropped a bar. It has been a little bit worse than this, even earlier today when I took the drone out for a flight. Yeah, so about 400 meters away, and it does look like we are starting to lose connection, which is very unusual for this drone. You see, I'm not even that far away. 400 meters isn't that far, and the signal is dropping quite remarkably here. Now, this is particularly unusual because I've flown the Mini 2 now, as I say, for over a year, and I never get signal dropouts over this particular woods area at this range, but this is definitely something I am experiencing, and it's actually making me a little more nervous to fly the Mini 2 right now. So I am going to start bringing it back. It didn't take long for those signal dropouts to start occurring. We are connected to 25 satellites, which is better than the drone normally gives me recently, I will tell you that, or the Mini 3. Okay, so I'll just line myself up perfectly with the drone again. And yep, that compass is still off, exactly the same as it was a few moments ago, which is really, really bizarre, in all honesty. I'm not sure why that's happening. Again, it was an issue that I'd had before, but not so much to this degree. But it had been resolved, so whatever DJI have done with this particular firmware update, or maybe that's to do with the Fly app, but I think it's to do with the firmware, the compass is also not playing ball. And that is also something that's happening with the Mini 3 Pro as well. Okay. Right, so I'm just getting things turned off now. To be honest with you, I didn't get the problems through on video as much as I'd hoped, but here's the thing. I've been flying this drone a lot. I know how it flies, and I know for a fact that this is flying differently at the moment than what I'm used to. It's just not as efficient in terms of its connection to the remote controller device. It's not as efficient with its satellite connections. It's not as efficient with its pinpointing the you know, the telemetry in terms of where the drone is in relation to the controller itself on the compass. And I don't know why this is happening. I can only assume it's this firmware update that's tried to improve the flight safety. Whatever they've had to do in order to improve the flight safety has made a lot of these things worse. I'm hoping this is something that DJI are going to correct. As I mentioned, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think this is to try and push people to buy the Mini 3 Pro that already own a Mini 2. I'm having the same issues with the Mini 3 Pro. So I'm going to keep you guys updated in terms of, you know, what happens with the firmware going forward and when DJI update it again to see if that improves things. But what I really want to do is hear from you guys that have either flown the Mini 2 or the Mini 3 Pro, and just explain to us any issues you might have been having in terms of the connection, the compass, or any other issues, maybe complete dropouts or whatever the case may be. But I'm really hoping this is something that DJI are going to be looking into. Hopefully they're doing that already. If there are any other firmware updates or Fly app updates, I will be keeping you guys notified to see if any of these issues are corrected. And I know that this isn't going to happen because it never has, but I really do wish that DJI would put more information in their update notes so that we don't have to try and figure out all this stuff for ourselves. Because if any of these problems are corrected that I've experienced or that you guys might be experiencing, one thing I can guarantee is that when DJI update the app or the firmware, they won't tell us if they fix those problems. We'll have to figure that out for ourselves. But rest assured guys, I will be here to help you do that. I will be putting the Mini 2 and the Mini 3 Pro through their paces going forward. So please do stick around the channel. Thank you for watching today's video, and I'll see you next time.